I invite the member for Abbotsford West to lead the House in prayer or reflection.
Heavenly Father, we come before you today praying for our province of British Columbia and our nation of Canada. We pray for unity. Lord, may your healing come. May the walls that divide us no longer stand. O Lord our God, heal our land. We ask for your guidance and wisdom for all elected leaders, that we may make decisions that reflect your justice and love. We pray for the unity among all Canadians, regardless of background or beliefs or political stripe, for a spirit of compassion and understanding to prevail. We have the privilege of living, worshiping, working, and playing in this free country. Your creation has given this province and nation an abundance of natural resources and given us the privilege of overseeing what you have provided. For incredible natural beauty, you also provide us with the means for sustaining an abundant life for all who live in this land. You give us the opportunity not only to enjoy your recreation here, but you allow us to share our resources with others who have far less. We do not take this for granted, Lord. It's a gift we desire to steward wisely and generously. We ask for your blessings upon all Canadians. Lord, especially those facing hardships or difficulties this day. May your peace be with them and us, and may we be a people who reflect your love to each other and to the world. Lord, may your healing come. May the walls that divide us no longer stand. O Lord, our God, heal our land. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Introduction by members. Minister of Agriculture and Food.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Today, later on, we are proclaiming May 13th officially BC Dairy Day. And it's a day, Madam Speaker, that the BC dairy industry is recognized and celebrated for the work that they do and the role that they play in our province's food security. I've got a whole bunch of guests who are joining us today, and also maybe I'll remind folks that at lunchtime, Rocky Point Ice Cream is going to be handing out ice cream at the back of the Legislature, but yeah, delicious. So today in the chamber, in the gallery, we have Dan Wong from the Western Dairy Council, Travis Drew from Vitalis, Tanvir Hamed from AgriPure, Catherine Tokards from Saputo, Bill McKenzie from Foothills Creamery, Gilles Fremont from Lactonut, Jeremy Dunn from BC Dairy, Casey Prune from BC Dairy, Brian Jansen from BC Dairy, Henry Bremer from BC Dairy, John Dedoux from BC Dairy, Sarah Sash from BC Dairy, Mark Van Clay from BC Dairy, and Luke Van Hoosen from BC Dairy. Give them a hand.
Member for Prince George, North Cariboo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to introduce my staff from Prince George, North Cariboo, who will be working in the Legislature in the precinct this week. Adam Shawn from Quesnel, Shallon Poser from Quesnel, and Jonathan Rain from Prince George. Would the House please make them very welcome? Thank you.
Minister of Labour.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You know, it's a real honour today to welcome members of United Food and Commercial Workers 1518 into the gallery and onto the precinct today. Many of us had an opportunity to join their delegation for breakfast this morning and to hear directly about the important work that they do in our retail grocery sector, in our food supply chain, in healthcare, all across, really in many different sectors UFCWs are working. We're joined today by Patrick Johnson, President, Rhonda Melbourne, Secretary-Treasurer, and about 24 frontline workers who I know are going to be bringing their stories to many members of this precinct today. These folks are good friends and neighbours in my home community of New Westminster, where the UFCW office is located. They're some of the fiercest advocates for decency and dignity for working people ever. Would the House please join me in making them feel very welcome in their place?
Member for Caribou-Chilcotin.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to introduce two incredibly good friends of mine. They were instrumental in my campaign, Madam Speaker, but they are best known for the folks that created and ran for a number of years the 108 Hills Resort, of course, in 108 Mile, British Columbia. A beautiful resort. Pat and Juanita Corbett, you are amazing human beings. You've done so much for the Caribou-Chilcotin, and I'm grateful for you. They are joined today, Madam Speaker, by Devin Varakowski and Isabel Estefan. They are two young, brilliant, bright students that are both attending university here in Victoria. Many welcomes to you all. Thank you very much.
Minister of Citizen Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have in the gallery two members of my constituency staff, Nathalie Verk and Kayla Chachuk, who are here visiting Legislature and attending a conference. And I'd like to ask the House to join me to welcome them. And they're my able staff that help me a lot. Without them, I'll be at a loss. Thank you.
Member for Prince George Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Official opposition, I also wanted to thank the UFCW Local 1518 for being here for the engagement this morning and today. Welcome to the Legislature, and of course, thank you to the 28,000 members who provide good jobs, and we're all working towards safe workplaces for all in British Columbia, including your 28,000 workers, so thank you for being here.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I'd like also to welcome three constituency advisors that I get to work with in my riding of South Granville, just to give you a sense on the great background that these CAs bring to us. And I know everyone in this House is served by incredible people who bring all kinds of different skills to this role. I have three CAs here with me. Celine McRae-Hamdy, who's actually an engineer by training. Kathleen Sereno, who is really a true political wonk and has spent some time in Ottawa, and Megan Baird, who's a small business person. I'm so fortunate to have their skills and their amazing attitude serve me in my work. Thank you very much for everything you do.
West Vancouver Capilano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my privilege, especially during National Police Week, to introduce to you today a dedicated and community-focused leader in BC's law enforcement, Chief Constable John Lowe of West Vancouver Police Department. Chief Lowe first joined the West Van Police Department in 1995 and now has nearly 30 years of experience in law enforcement. Over the course of his distinguished career, served almost entirely within the West Van. He has taken on a wide range of leadership roles and built a reputation for integrity, professionalism, and a deep commitment to public service. Notably, he is the first internal promotion to the role of Chief Constable in 17 years, a testament to the trust and confidence placed in him by both his colleagues and community. Chief Lowe's approach reflects a clear understanding that public safety is not just about enforcement, it is about listening, fostering trust, and working together to build a community where everyone feels safe, respected, and heard. Please join me in welcoming to the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia a valued and dedicated public servant, Chief John Lowe.
Member for Penticton-Summerland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm honored today to introduce from my riding Michelle Cumberland and her class from Holy Cross Elementary School, along with their chaperone, Sophie Robinson. Sophie Robinson and Michelle Cumberland have a real passion for civic education, and they do this trip every year to help students get their eye on what actually happens in the seat of democracy here in British Columbia. Michelle Cumberland is the recipient of the King Charles III Coronation Medal in recognition of her significant contributions to civic education. And Sophie just finished her first year at the University of Toronto on the Loran Scholarship. Welcome to yourselves and your class, and will the House please join me in making them feel very welcome.
Member for Ladysmith Oceanside.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I am going to join the constituency advisor welcome train that's moving through the House today. I have my amazing constituency advisor, I believe, sitting up behind me, Haley Tomlinson, working from the precinct today as a brand new MLA. I am so thrilled to have Haley supporting me with all of her incredible experience and knowledge. If you could all make sure to make Haley feel very welcome today if you see her. Thanks very much.
Member for Langley Abbotsford.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Joining me here in the gallery today is my constituency assistant, Joe Latham. Joe was born and raised in Abbotsford, later attended University of British Columbia. While at UBC, Joe served as the treasurer of the Young Conservative Club, later interned in Ottawa. Joe moved back to BC to work on the provincial elections before joining my staff. Please make him feel very welcome.
Member for Fraser-Nicola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I got a couple of introductions to do this morning. First, I'd like to welcome back my wife after spending a couple of weeks in Edmonton, where we were blessed with another beautiful baby boy. Unfortunately, he was 2 months early and had to spend a couple of weeks in the hospital, but he was able to come home. Our little Tyson was able to come home on Mother's Day, and what a wonderful Mother's Day present for the mother to have him home at that time. I'd also like to introduce the students of Sardis Secondary French Immersion class. They are accompanied by Angela Robertson, who happens to be my wife's niece. So we're very pleased to have her in the house here today and enjoying a visit. And I believe they had a wonderful lunch together yesterday. I would also like to introduce a group of LDS missionaries here in the gallery today. They have been touring the precinct and are taking in our proceedings during question period. Most of them are from the United States, so they're here to see how democracy really works in British Columbia. So would you please join me in welcoming all to the House this day?
Member for Vernon-Lumby.
Speaker, I am thrilled to welcome my two CAs. One of them, Amy Klassen, it's her first time ever at the precinct, and Caitlin Couture. They're both incredible team. Caitlin comes from journalism experience as she was a beloved chief editor with their local paper, and Amy comes from finance and business. They also have originally born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, and having to live in Kootenays, and for Amy for 15 years in Lumby, then Vernon. They're very well connected with community and community issues. They serve with utmost care, fierce advocacy, and when people say during question period or other debates, Alberta this, Alberta that, they have a lot to say because they have wholesome experience, and they tell me how grateful them and their families are here to live in BC, and BC is lucky to have them. Vernon-Lumby is lucky to have them. Would the House please make them feel very welcome? Thank you.
Member for West Kelowna Peachland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today it is my pleasure to report that the RCMP Union National Police Federation will be meeting with the entire Conservative caucus. I would like to thank and welcome President Brian Sauvé and Chris Voller and Rob Ferrer. Will this House join me in welcoming them to the Legislature?
Minister for Local Governments and Rural Communities.
Thank you. I would like to welcome my three constituency advisors today to the precinct. They're going to be working here this week. It's Anna Bunchu, Sarah Wassilenkoff, and Erica Chezek. And they come from a variety of different backgrounds. Erica had recently finished her master's focused on housing in rural communities before joining us. Sarah has been an incredible advocate and working in victim services for a really long time. And Anna is an incredible community builder and special events organizer. And I am so grateful to the three of them for all of the incredible work that they do for the riding of Kootenay Central. So will the House please make them feel very welcome.
Member for Delta South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, here's a quiz for everyone. What noble profession requires a routine of getting up at 4:30 a.m. every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, milking cows at 5 a.m. and then again at 5 p.m., while in between, during your 14-hour day, you are feeding, cleaning, planting, harvesting, and taking on the de facto roles of a veterinarian, a mechanic, an environmentalist, working 14-hour days. It sounds like being an MLA here in the legislature. But as a former dairy farmer myself, third-generation dairy farmer, I'm so proud of the work that they do with the BC Dairy Association and the folks that are here with the processing industry. So between the Minister of Agriculture and myself, we look forward to meeting you all this afternoon and having ice cream at lunchtime today.
Seeing no further introductions, Madam Clerk.
Introduction of bills. Statements by members.
Member for Surrey Panorama.
This week, we celebrate National Police Week, a time to honor the courage, resilience, and sacrifice of our law enforcement officers. These men and women are the heart of our communities, working tirelessly to protect us, often at great personal cost. Police officers confront danger and trauma daily, responding to crisis, protecting the vulnerable, and risking their lives. Tragically, many have made the ultimate sacrifice, leaving behind grieving families and communities. We honor their memory and pledge to never forget them. Beyond physical risks, officers face profound mental health challenges. The constant exposure to stress, violence, and loss takes a heavy toll, often in silence. Issues like anxiety, depression, and operational stress injuries are real, yet only recently have we begun to recognize and address them. Departments are now starting to offer counseling, peer support, and wellness programs, but there's more work to do. Acknowledging these struggles is a vital step towards supporting our officers' well-being. National Police Week is also an opportunity to reflect on the partnerships between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Let's foster trust, support mental health, resources, and show appreciation for our officers' service. To every officer, thank you for your bravery. To your families, thank you for your strength. And to our fallen heroes, your sacrifice lives on in us. Let's make this week a moment of unity, gratitude, and commitment to support those who protect us, body, mind, and spirit. Thank you.
Member for Surrey Newton.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to mark the anniversary of the Kamagata Maru, a dark chapter in our province and our country's history. On May 23, 1914, a steamship arrived in Vancouver carrying 376 passengers, including Hindus, Muslims, and mainly Sikhs from British India. They came here in search of opportunity, but instead they were met with rejection, dehumanization, and blatant racism. They were forced to remain aboard the ship for 2 months, cut off from food and water, all before being unjustly turned away under exclusionary laws designed to keep Canada white. The passengers called the ship the Guru Nanak Jahaz. Their passage was a symbol of resistance and a sacred journey grounded in their faith and the belief that all human beings are equal. However, that belief was met with closed doors, and the consequences were devastating, with many passengers facing violence, persecution, and even death. As a Punjabi Sikh woman in this legislature, I do not take my place here for granted. There was a time when people who looked like me had no path to citizenship, when we could not vote in this province, and when we had no rights in this very house where I stand today. Honourable Speaker, I think often about the sacrifices those passengers made and the struggles of the South Asian pioneers who came before us, many of whom faced open hostility and racism. Their ongoing resilience is what made space for families like mine to come to Canada. But I also think about how today, more than a century later, racism persists, now aimed at international students who are scapegoated, migrant workers who are treated as disposable, and refugees who are looked upon with suspicion instead of compassion. This is why we have a responsibility to continue fighting against injustice and do better each and every day. Because remembering painful chapters like the Kamagata Maru isn't just about looking back, it's about learning from our mistakes, confronting racism and injustice when we see it, and refusing to let history repeat itself. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Cappuccino, latte, cheesecake, creme brulee, fudge, ice cream. What do all these things have in common? Milk, and obviously deliciousness. There was a commercial on TV that used to say, milk, it does a body good. And it really does. Did you know that a single glass of milk contains almost every single nutrient your body needs? Vitamin B12, calcium, riboflavin, phosphorus, milk proteins, casein, whey protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And who do we have to thank for this vital addition and rather necessary part of our everyday diet? Cows, of course. But who takes good care and facilitates the extraction with loving kindness? It's the farmer. Today is BC Dairy Day. In BC, there are 426 dairy farms. They milk on average of 160 cows per farm, create 12,500 related jobs in this province that contributes to $1.225 billion to BC's GDP. 890 million litres of milk are produced annually. And by the way, 77% of those farms are in the Fraser Valley, just saying. Now that I've whetted your appetite, you'll be happy to know that we are, well, you already know, obviously, that we're being treated to ice cream by the dairy farmers of BC because it's officially Ice Cream Day. Definitely a benefit to our jobs. So enjoy the treats today, and while you're at it, say thank you on behalf of all British Columbians to the amazing dairy farmers of BC. Thank you.
Member for Victoria Swan Lake.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Early this month, people gathered in Lytton, BC to celebrate something extraordinary. The launch of the rebuilt Lytton Chinese History Museum, destroyed during a devastating wildfire in 2021. The profound significance of this reopening for the town and the entire province speaks to the power of museums as sites for collecting and storytelling, for learning, connection, and renewal. Today, in recognition of BC Museums Week, I thank the people at the heart of the spaces and sites that make our communities strong. From Craigdarroch Castle to Britannia Mine Museum, from Barkerville Historic Town to the Bill Reid Gallery, we are so proud of our world-class institutions, which are drivers for local tourism. I thank the Museums Association of BC for their support of a sector that contributes so much to our cultural and economic prosperity and to our health and well-being. Our government has been proud to invest in the creation of spaces such as the Chinese Canadian Museum and J West, a new community hub, Jewish community hub in Vancouver, to support Indigenous cultural centers that are so important for advancing meaningful reconciliation. This government will continue to support the vision of Canadians of South Asian heritages for a provincial museum and the vision of Canadians of Filipino heritage for a provincial cultural centre. Forthcoming, the Royal BC Museum's new Provincial Archives, Research and Collections campus will allow visitors and researchers to access, interact with, and learn from BC's histories, the diverse and sometimes painful threads that make up our past and help us imagine a better future. This week and always, let's champion a thriving arts, culture, and heritage sector, which is a driver for imagination, innovation, and for our identities as Canadians and British Columbians. Thank you.
Member for Maple Ridge East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is springtime now, and I thought it might be timely for me to introduce to you a breathtaking natural escape located right in the heart of Maple Ridge, and that is the Golden Years Provincial Park. I must say that this park is not only a masterpiece of landscape, it is also a symbol of British Columbia's commitment to conservation, outdoor recreation, and the deep connection we have with nature. Covering more than 63,000 hectares, Golden Years Provincial Park is one of the largest provincial parks in BC, with a vast expanse of rugged wilderness, pristine lakes, and towering mountains. It has been a popular outdoor destination for both locals and visitors for generations. I myself will visit this truly magnificent park several times a year with my family or friends. And where does Golden Years Provincial Park get its name from, you may ask? Well, it gets its name from the twin peaks that dominate the skyline. Two rugged, pointed summits that look like two gigantic human ears that glow golden at sunset. The park is home to dense coastal rainforests, crystal clear rivers and streams. It is a sanctuary for birds, black bears, deers, eagles, and the elusive cougars. For the people of Peak Meadows, Maple Ridge, and Mission, Golden Years is a place where families make memories, where friends gather around a picnic table, and where outdoor enthusiasts find inspiration. It is a place of healing, reflection, fun, and adventure. Madam Speaker, Golden Years is a perfect getaway from the hustle and bustle of city life. I will encourage my friends and colleagues in this House to come and visit the one and only Golden Years Provincial Park. Thank you.
Member for North Vancouver Seymour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and celebrate the nurses of British Columbia. As always, I begin by acknowledging that I'm currently speaking from the lands of the Lekwungen people, specifically those of the Songhees and Kapsalum nations, and when I am in North Vancouver Seymour, I work, live, and learn in the territory of the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and I'm grateful to all for helping me to learn the many meanings and practices of reconciliation. This National Nursing Week and International Nurses Day, I recognize the hard work and dedication of nurses throughout British Columbia. Nurses provide exceptional care in our communities, hospitals, and care homes, and their expertise is deeply valued, especially in times of need. The nursing family, including licensed practical nurses, registered psychiatric nurses, and nurse practitioners, make invaluable contributions to community, acute, and specialized health care, as well as to primary care. Their role is critical in supporting patients from the moment they enter the healthcare system through to their recovery and ongoing health maintenance, or to guide patients and families through end-of-life care. Our government is proud to work with nursing leaders and organizations to build a stronger, more responsive healthcare system for all British Columbians. We're committed to making BC the best place in Canada for nurses to work. In collaboration with the BC Nurses Union, we are establishing minimum nurse-to-patient ratios to improve working conditions and enhance the quality of patient care. The government is also working with the College of Nurses and Nurse Practitioners to expedite the registration process of internationally trained nurses. As a part of this effort, we are now actively recruiting nurses and nurse practitioners from the U.S. to join our workforce in partnership with health authorities, regulatory colleges, and other key stakeholders. We're launching a marketing campaign in Washington, Oregon, and California to promote job opportunities in areas where nurses are needed most. To all nurses across BC, thank you for your tireless dedication.
Madam Clerk.
Oral questions by members.
Recognizing the member from Richmond, Queensborough.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This government has had 8 years to deal with rising crime, addictions, and the mental health crisis in the downtown east side of Vancouver. 8 years of failed policies, 8 years of continued inability to action solutions to improve the challenges people experience on a daily basis in the downtown east side of Vancouver. This government solution is to appoint Michael Bryant as the so-called downtown east side czar. Without public announcement, without public transparency, without consultation. The activist community knew Bryant was acting as the downtown east side czar. But the public was left in the dark. And the public didn't find out until the media went digging. Given that the downtown east side is a vulnerable population, can the Premier tell us what specific expertise does Michael Bryant have to deal with the issues of the downtown east side?
The Minister for Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and welcome to the chair. It was good to see you there. Thank you to the member for the question. All of us in this chamber know how the downtown east side faces complex challenges and how hard we've all been working to find more ways to deliver services to people. We have built new housing. We have strengthened access to addiction treatment services. We have added employment supports to be able to help connect people with good jobs that are meaningful to them and help them access more opportunities. But we know that systemic challenges remain. We know that for businesses and for residents, that the neighborhood can be unsafe or people can feel unsafe. And that's why we engaged Michael Bryant to be able to work directly with the community to find advice, to evaluate the work that we've done, to identify solutions to the gaps and the work that remains ahead of us, work that our government is committed to do.
Member for Richmond Queensborough on a supplemental.
Mr. Bryant was the head of legal aid and suddenly left after 2 years. Can the Premier please inform the House why Mr. Bryant left legal aid so abruptly?
Minister for Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Michael Bryant's previous experience includes being a lawyer, CEO of Legal Aid BC, Executive Director and General Counsel for the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. He also held political office in Ontario, first as Attorney General, also as Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, also as Minister of Economic Development. And the roles that he has held give him a unique perspective, but also an outside perspective. His ability to work with a variety of communities who are impacted by the systemic challenges in the downtown east side is work that we are glad to see him do.
Member for Surrey White Rock.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know about Michael Bryant's past work history. That is why we have so many questions about Michael Bryant. The fact is this government is in the business of rewarding friends and insiders, but this one may be the most egregious. Here's what we know so far. The minister's right. He is a former Attorney Liberal Cabinet Minister, Attorney General, and they should maybe Google on why he left Ontario. Michael Bryant was appointed a consultant in February on a 6-month contract worth $150,000. And how do we find out about this work? We find out about it through global news. And then we get a press release issued in panic. He also gets $25,000 in expenses. So my question is a simple one to the Premier or to the Attorney General or to anybody that can provide an answer. Was the City of Vancouver consulted before Mr. Bryant was hired?
Minister for Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Michael Bryant has held a variety of roles that give him a unique perspective and ability to work with the businesses, the communities, the people affected by continuing systemic challenges in the downtown east side. He comes to this work as a lawyer, and a former elected official, but he's also been very public about his own struggle with addiction. That lived experience and his recovery journey is certainly well known and compelling to us. These are valuable perspectives to bring to this work. While we continue to work to keep people in the downtown east side living and working safer and make the area safer for everybody, it's very important to hear outside perspectives. And that's the work that I'm pleased that Michael Bryant's doing.
Member for Surrey White Rock on a supplemental.
That's great, Madam Speaker. So outside perspectives for $150,000 for 6 months of work. You know what? And this is maybe why it's so quiet on the government side, we have a pretty good idea why he may have left BC Legal Aid. I think the Premier might have an idea. I think the Attorney General might have an idea. They're not going to get up and talk about this. In fact, the Attorney General, we know, has met with Mr. Bryant. We know the Premier has met with Mr. Bryant as early as February of this year. And what did Mr. Bryant tell Global News? What his big mandate is? What justifies $150,000 for 6 months of work, $25,000 worth of expenses on the backs of our most vulnerable people on the downtown east side? Here he says, and I quote, "Whether the plans the province has underway and the commitments the province made during the election are going to make sense," end quote. That's absolutely embarrassing. A plan for the downtown east side. Are you kidding me? So the Premier may not want to answer this. The Attorney General may not want to answer this. The Solicitor General might not want to answer this. But what justification does this government have for giving this contract to this individual on the backs of our most vulnerable people? It's absolutely a disgrace.
Minister for Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am honored to stand up and support and describe the work that this government has been doing, investing in so a combined 211 supportive homes and shelter spaces are underway or will be preserved. Opening the new Road to Recovery Addiction Treatment Center, fulfilling our commitment. Fulfilling our commitment to have addiction treatment on demand for the people that need it most. Expanding the Hope to Health program to help 50% more people with complex mental health and addiction challenges, and working with Lookout Society in the downtown east side, integrating supportive housing with comprehensive employment services. That's just only 4 of the programs that we've added. And given our closeness, almost every minister directly funding and building new programs
it's absolutely a benefit for us to bring an outside perspective with someone with a unique set of qualifications to investigate that work, to identify gaps, and to point us towards the future work that we need to carry on.
Recognizing the House Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Across the country, disability assistance fails to meet the poverty line. In BC, there have been menial increases to rates for persons with disabilities. The costs of housing and essential goods have increased drastically, yet assistance rates have failed to keep pace. The market basket measure of poverty is $2,400 a month, while BC's assistance for a single individual is barely $1,400. That's a gap of $1,000 a month. This is legislated poverty. It's unjust. Year over year, advocates call for this government to raise the rates. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Premier, when will you instruct your government to finally raise disability rates above the poverty line? Thank you.
Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The world does feel uncertain right now. The cost of living has been under pressure by global inflation, by terribly increased costs of groceries, and for British Columbia especially, at an intractably high cost of housing, which we're working very hard to bring down, having some impact. But the members' intervention is exactly why we have made 5 increases to income and disability rates since 2017. This is the largest by any government in British Columbia ever. Since 2017, the rate for a single person is up $450 a month. That is a 74% increase. And we've doubled the senior supplement with this year's budget, and we've increased SAFER grants by 30%. Across government, we are making investments so that people who have faced challenges can overcome the terribly increased cost of living. We've also got the highest earning exemptions rate in the country, so people can supplement with earned income their disability benefits, and also continuing to invest in employment training programs and job support programs for people who have faced barriers. It's work that we have been fully committed to, but the member, it's a very fair point. It's work we're going to continue to do. Thank you.
House Leader for the Third Party on a supplemental.
Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister, could she survive with a household income of less than $2,300 a month?
Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The work that we have done to I see the members of the opposition are heckling even on this question. So again, I'll flag our record against the leader of the official opposition when he sat in the provincial cabinet. They froze income assistance rates.
Members.
At $610 for a decade. And we have increased.
Minister, just a minute. Sit down. Members, let's hear the answer. Minister.
We've increased rates 5 times where the leader of the opposition's party froze income assistance at $610 a month for a decade. They took away the bus pass for disability. We gave the bus pass back. They never touched the senior supplement. We doubled it and increased it again. I'll hold our record up against theirs for vulnerable people any day.
Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking of that record, the CEO of CLBC gets a $12,000 car allowance, so I'm sure we can find some money in the budget. Yesterday, I raised the case of a young Indigenous woman who was denied access to a shelter and found dead the next morning. The housing minister falsely insinuated that it was a municipally run shelter to offload the responsibility before doing a victory lap. To be clear, it was a permanent shelter that was run with BC Housing funding that she was turned away from. And sadly, her story only gets worse. After one of her overdoses, this young woman was hospitalized, and staff allowed her to use fentanyl and meth inside of her hospital room. When her father made a complaint, instead of receiving the necessary medical intervention to help stabilize her, she was given a wheelchair so that she could continue to use drugs just outside. Does this health minister think that it's appropriate to give vulnerable youth a wheelchair to continue using drugs when they are in crisis?
Minister of Health. Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Anybody seeking health care in a facility like a hospital needs to get the care that they deserve and need. There are people who enter hospital facilities and other healthcare facilities who are experiencing substance use and addiction issues, and it's important that they are treated with dignity and respect as well. Honourable Speaker, we know that workplace safety is the ultimate goal here, that patients and nurses, doctors, the whole healthcare team needs to be safe. That's why interventions like overdose prevention services are important. Honourable Speaker, that's why we're working to release overdose prevention services minimum service standards, to work with health authorities to ensure that there are places that are safe where people can access not only the ability to use substances when they are facing these kinds of challenges, and most importantly, Honourable Speaker, to get access to the supports and the care that they need. Mr. Speaker, it's incredibly important to me that every single person using British Columbia's healthcare system is treated with that dignity and respect. And I want to assure the member that that continues to be my commitment, and I welcome further conversation with her about this individual. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Skeena of the supplemental.
Just a few months ago, this young woman was sober for a full week. She made it to a Kelowna hospital with her father, begging for help, begging for treatment. Her father said to me, quote, she could get free food, free crack pipes, free sleeping bags, free drugs, free Narcan. You know what wasn't free? Help, end quote. Instead of recovery services, she was given prescribed alternatives, despite already being sober, and sent back to unsafe conditions where she relapsed. How does this government not see that their approach is enabling and not helping?
Minister of Health. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. These are exactly the circumstances that we hear about that allow us to redouble our efforts and our commitment to serving people who face these kinds of crises. Honourable Speaker, we're taking actions on all fronts to fight the toxic drug crisis and to support people experiencing these kinds of substance use issues. Madam Speaker, we're building the Road to Recovery model, a seamless continuum of services for people with same-day access to a team that will triage and help a person access opioid agonist therapies, help them access the supports that they need, building more treatment beds, more recovery beds. Madam Speaker, that's what dignified treatment looks like for people, increasing the number and services that are available for people so that they can get the help that they need when and where they need it. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Abbotsford West.
Well, she received everything that harmed her, but the help that Desiree needed. It's very sad. A Jordan's Principle-funded treatment place was fully approved for this youth in a centre in Alberta. But no one from Child and Family Services here in BC showed up to the hospital to complete the paperwork. What happened? The opportunity was lost. Not only did this young person need to go to Alberta for proper support, How can this ministry explain letting treatment plan fall apart simply because their ministry staff couldn't do their job and show up?
There it is.
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. As I've mentioned, we are doing everything possible that we can to support youth and adults who are experiencing substance use issues to access the care and the treatment that they need. But, Madam Speaker, I know that the opposition doesn't like to hear about the past. I know they don't want to hear about the record of their leader when he sat on this side of the House. This is the kind of service, Madam Speaker, this is the kind of service.
Members. Continue.
This is the kind of service that they gave to people during their time in office, Honourable Speaker. Cutting funding to the Atlas Youth Recovery in Terrace, the only residential recovery centre for youth in the Northwest. Closing the adult psychiatric unit at Abbotsford Hospital. Madam Speaker, eliminating psychology services for adult rehabilitation at the Royal Inland Hospital. Closing the only withdrawal management program in the Fraser Valley. Madam Speaker, we are building more beds, we are adding more services, we are expanding the continuum of care for people, and we will not stop.
Member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Excuse me. Between the ages of 14 and 16, this young woman's family repeatedly begged Child and Family Services for help. When they called on a Monday, they were told no one could come until Friday. When they requested mental health support, they were told it would be a 34-day wait, despite her having a documented history of self-harm and trauma. This was not a one-time error. This was the norm. How can the Minister for Children and Family Development possibly defend a system that makes a child in crisis wait for more than a month for care?
Shame.
Minister for Children and Family Development.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Every child in this province and every family deserves access to the support and help that they need when they need it. More importantly, Honourable Speaker, my ministry is also focused on support and help earlier on so that children and families don't get to crisis. And so our ministry is focused and has invested in enhanced early intervention therapy services that support children at the youngest ages. We have wraparound supports and services in community and child development centres that combine developmental specialists with mental health specialists, with clinical counselors. We have integrated child and youth teams in schools. We have invested in Foundry centers, Honourable Speaker. We have made more investments in mental health services than decades before. There is more work to be done. It is heartbreaking to me to hear when any child cannot access the supports and services that they need. I'm a mom of teenagers. My teenagers have needed to access support and services. We know that there are waits. We know that there are struggles. We are working every day to decrease barriers, to decrease silos between ministries. That work is ongoing, and we will continue to do the work.
Member for Prince George Valemont.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Unfortunately, the current government continues to talk about the history of the opposition 10 years ago. 10 years ago, this young woman was 10. Youth are in crisis now. Now, youth. Today, this young woman lives in a homeless camp in Nelson, where she has been sexually assaulted. She is addicted to fentanyl, meth, and benzodiazepines. According to her father, at one point, this government placed her in an SRO with a known human trafficker. Yesterday, this Minister of Housing stood in the chamber bragging about unrelated projects while ignoring this young lady's crisis, even though the local NDP MLA has been fully aware of the case details and should have relayed them by now. How can this government justify letting a vulnerable teenager struggling to overcome addiction fall through every crack, only to end up in a drug camp surrounded by predators?
Minister for Housing and Municipal Affairs.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. And every single individual, whether they're young, whether they're seniors, deserves to get access to housing. The member from Terrace yesterday in her question said this individual was sleeping in an emergency weather shelter. I heard it. I'll check the record. But that's funded by local government, and that was my comment.
Control yourself.
Clearly, the member from Surrey Cloverdale continues to heckle, continues to not be able to control the heckling that comes out of her mouth. Honourable Speaker, perhaps I'll answer when the member is ready. Great leadership material for the next BC Conservative Party, Honourable Speaker, from that member from Surrey Cloverdale. Even their members are laughing. Honourable Speaker, the member referred to the housing that I mentioned. The housing that I've mentioned is important because we're making investments to invest in housing that people need that are struggling in our communities. Why are we making those investments? Because those investments weren't made for decades. We are decades behind when it comes to affordable housing. We talk about supportive housing in this time, Honourable Speaker, all the time. But I continuously hear opposition every time. And so we're going to continue to invest in supportive housing in Nelson to support vulnerable people to get them indoors, Honourable Speaker, because it's vitally important to do so. But what I want to hear when we bring these projects forward, not only in Nelson, but in Richmond and other communities, it would be good to hear these people supporting it because the story of this young woman is tragic. But every time we open supportive housing, that's who it's supporting. It's supporting vulnerable people. So you can't come in this House and criticize us for not having enough, and then at the same time, go in your communities and talk about how you don't want these housing units in our community. You can't have it both ways. So, Honourable Chair, we'll continue to do the work to support this vulnerable person and other vulnerable peoples because we know this housing is vitally important.
Member for West Kelowna Peachland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This week, I've been working with a man recovering from addiction, living with a brain injury and completely blind. Yet he's been shuffled between two wet housing facilities that put his sobriety at risk. Agencies aren't talking to each other. He was sent to a new residence without a replacement white cane, just a broomstick to guide himself. Is this how we treat vulnerable people in this province? Can the minister explain how this level of negligence is acceptable under her watch?
Here, here.
Minister for Housing and Municipal Affairs.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member didn't share the community, but I assume it's West Kelowna. The member will be aware that we've been working with the local government to try to scale up more opportunities for people, all different types of opportunities, both some sites that are wet, as the member has replied, and some that are dry, because we know the needs are different for individuals. We have had some challenges in the community to get those units up. We've had some successes in the neighboring community in Kelowna. The member will be aware that we've got approximately 40 units that we've scaled up to get people indoors. But this is why we're making these investments. This is why we're going to communities and trying to make the case for why communities should accept this type of housing. Because we know that not every single person's needs are the same, but we also know that we need to have a breadth of options of housing available in communities. And so, again, I'll reiterate what I said in my previous answer, which is I appreciate the member bringing this case forward. I appreciate members raising issues on behalf of people who need supports. But what I'm asking is for this support to go outside. Go to your communities and make the case for why supportive housing is needed. Because in here, you're telling us that you think it's important. Good, I'm with you. We're doing that. We're out there talking to communities. But what we need from you is to go out there in your communities and say why it's needed. And that's what we're not hearing so far.
Recognizing the member from Kamloops Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the problem with that answer is that we repeatedly bring these issues to the government, and the only people they seem to listen to is the Mutual Admiration Society on that side of the House. They don't realize these are the issues from the communities we're bringing forward, and they're not solving the problems. Madam Chair, you know, it's interesting. Shortly after the Premier strong-armed his way into the Premier's chair through that sham of a leadership race the NDP had, the Premier insisted he had all the answers for the downtown east side. He cut his teeth there as a young lawyer. He knew what needed to happen. He was going to take it over. He was going to take the reins of it, and you would have changes you could touch and see and feel immediately. That was the Premier's commitment. Then, in the election, when he had been failing for 2 years, he said, and his commitment in the election, as he just said the other day, whether the plans the province has underway and commitments the province made during the election are going to make sense. So a man who said he had all the answers goes through an election saying he has all the answers, now has to actually hire yet another consultant to find out if his plans actually make sense or not, Madam Chair. That's the track record of this government. 7 years of failure. Now they have to review all of their failures to figure out how to fix the mess they've created after 7 years. Madam Chair, we've asked a couple of questions today about the hiring of Michael Bryant. A couple key ones have been conveniently completely avoided by this government. So dealer's choice. They can pick either of the two that they've refused to answer. Why did Michael Bryant leave BC legal aid, not Ontario, BC legal aid, after only 2 years? And why, or was, Vancouver actually consulted about the secret hiring, apparently, of Michael Bryant back in February? They can answer either or both of those questions if they choose, or they can go down weird rabbit holes like they've been doing for the rest of today, Madam Chair.
Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. There was a lot in that rant that we just heard, Honourable Speaker. But I'll go to the core principle. I think what the member was talking about is that things that they're hearing in their community. I hope he's hearing in his community that people are pleased with the largest investment in housing in the history of Kamloops, Honourable Speaker. The member from Terrace raised an issue in this House about an individual who had their money being clawed back. I hope she's hearing that that issue got resolved. The member from Prince George, I'm sure that they're hearing that the largest investment in supportive housing, which has addressed the Buxton Flats and getting people indoors, is helping. I hope the member from Campbell River is hearing the same thing. I hope the members in all their communities. Members.
We're close here.
Nervous?
Let's hear members. Minister, hold on. Hold on. Let's hear the response from the minister. Proceed, Minister.
Thank you. I clearly hit a soft spot, Honourable Speaker. My point, Honourable Speaker, is this. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The point is, Honourable Speaker, that the housing we're putting to communities, the supports we're putting around those housing units, is making a big difference in communities.
Members, we're near the end here. Let's hear the response from the minister. Minister, hold on. Hold on.
It's near the end of session, Honourable Speaker.
Hold on.
They're getting
Minister,
tired.
just a minute. Just a minute. All right. Proceed.
Continue to make investments in community. It's making a real difference. We're turning a corner. We know we have more to do, and we're going to continue to do that work, Honourable Chair. Thank you so much.
Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to raise a point of order, please. The Minister of Housing, I'd like him to withdraw his comments, saying that I had said it was an emergency weather shelter. I did not say that.
Thank you, member. I'll ask the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs if he wishes to respond to the point of order.
Chair, I thought I heard that, and I said that in my comment. If I am in fact not correct, I will withdraw.
The chair will review the relevant transcripts and take the matter under advisement. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Orders of the day.
Government House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In this chamber, I call continued second reading on Bill 14. In the Douglas Fir Room, continued estimates from the Ministry of Children and Families Development. And in the Tiny House Birch Room, continued committee stage on Bill 13.
Committee chairs. All right, I call the House to order and recognizing the member from Kamloops Centre to continue second reading on Bill 14, Renewable Energy Projects Streamlined Permitting Act.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to speak to Bill 14, also known as Just Trust Us. We're the NDP cabinet and we know better than experts. Bill for Renewable Energy Projects and Streamlined Permitting Act. And I say that because, you know, Bill 14 raises a lot of concerns. And as we've heard, you know, there's no doubt that we need to continue to look for ways to green up BC's power supply. There's no doubt that we need to continue to look for ways to electrify our economy, to transition away from fossil fuels, to embrace newer technologies, to power BC in a way that future growth requires and the world is demanding. But Bill 14 doesn't really accomplish that. What Bill 14 does is it provides a massive power grab to government under the guise of fast-tracking projects. So let's look at timelines as we discuss Bill 14 today. It was back in January the Minister of Energy had indicated that Bill 14 would be needed to fast-track the projects that this government has been talking about since January. Yet here we are debating it with 7 days to go in the Legislature. Doesn't sound like it was too much of a rush for the government to bring forward. And why would that be? Oh, probably because they rushed Bill 7 in on March 13th, that if they had not needed to gut in terms of Part 4, they wouldn't have needed Bill 14. They could have just changed any law at will of government. And so further delay from this government, who says they're a government trying to take action and move forward quickly on things. You know, when you look at this government's history and track record of the amount of times they have said over 7 years that they're taking action, that they're speeding processes up, that they're accelerating permitting, that they're getting bureaucracy out of the way, that they're invigorating the energy sector, that they're going to move forward with projects in a cohesive and timely way. The amount of times they've actually changed legislation to do that, I've actually lost count. Now, I was the environment critic for 3.5 years, from 2017 till the election in 2020. And, you know, there was an Environmental Assessment Review Act that then Minister Heyman brought forward. Had a lot of the same talking points from government that this does, in terms of moving forward projects quicker, keeping things out of the law courts, making sure there's true reconciliation with Indigenous communities, and so on and so on and so on. Yet, with Bill 14, what we have is a dramatic overreach by government. Now, I think it's telling the amount of overreach this has, because the government felt compelled to make this a confidence vote. They said the same with Bill 7, and then they had to backtrack almost immediately after people started to actually read the legislation and realized just how all-encompassing it was. But then they brought forward Bill 14, introduced Bill 14, and make sure everyone understands it's a confidence vote. Well, that made my life a lot easier, Madam Chair, because I have absolutely no confidence in this government on just about every single topic. So any and every confidence vote that this government is asking me to express in them, I know what my vote's going to be, and it'll be a vote of no. I have no confidence in this government. I have no confidence in this government's ability to deliver what they say Bill 14 is actually going to deliver. Because here we are, mid-May, what is that, 6 months, 5-6 months since January when this was first announced, and we're finally getting to it. That's the rush that this government, the minister can say 3, and maybe that's the problem. It's NDP math at its finest yet again. It was January when it was first announced that we were going to be seeing projects around wind being fast-tracked. And, December, it gets even worse. So the minister is making it even worse in terms of the government expediting things along. The point is, the concept gets floated by a government in December, and here we are in May, and legislation that was acknowledged by this government needed to happen, changes to the energy regulator, don't come forward at the beginning of our session, don't come forward in the middle of our session, come forward in the dying days of our session, and come forward actually with closure introduced a day or two later to say we're going to limit debate, we're going to shut things off on Wednesday on the last week that we're here. I remember we're not here next week, so it's really 7 days worth. 6, if you consider next Thursday doesn't count as in relation to Bill 14, because the government's assured to take away even one more day of debate. And it's interesting, because typically closure gets brought in for the Thursday of our last day of sitting, and in fact the energy minister would well know that, because he was the health minister when Bill 36 got the same type of treatment, and that was on a Thursday that they decided they didn't want any more questions on the 400-plus clauses that hadn't been canvassed yet on Bill 36 after waiting to bring it forward and through this House in a way that did not allow for proper vetting of such a substantive bill. They've done it with forestry bills back in 2021. We actually had 2 forestry bills being debated at the same time in this chamber. We had one at second reading in this chamber. We had one at committee stage in the other chamber. Both wound up with closure on the last day of sitting. One didn't even get out a second reading and was passed by this government on fundamental changes to forestry. The other one had the forest minister in the other chamber dealing with committee stage on the other bill, and that got closure. That's how this government operates. So on Bill 14, they're operating the exact same way. Don't worry, folks, nothing to see here. Just trust us. Cabinet knows best. We'll solve all the problems. Except they haven't solved any problems in the last 7 years. They've made everything worse by every measure. And frankly, we're supposed to trust now that the energy minister that presided over a health system that declined over the last 7 years now has all the answers by way of regulation in Bill 14 to solve our energy problems that have been building for the whole 7 years that this government has been in office. Remember, this is a government that was fundamentally opposed to Site C and how the power was going to be redundant when Site C came online. And then they became government and they thought, well, we'll delay it for a year. We'll go through the motions with the Green Party to make it look like we're being sincere with our confidence and supply agreement. And then we'll continue with Site C, realizing we actually need the electricity if we're going to electrify the province. Here we are 7 years later. Site C, I would remind everybody, by their own former Minister Mungal, as of June 30th, 2017, this government took over July 2017. June 30th, 2017, Site C was on time and on budget. That was their own minister's words. And it's now been delayed, and we can't even get an accurate pricing number out of this government. They refuse to say. The last estimate we've had is $16 billion, not $6, like it was supposed to be, and no clear number. No clear number. And the Minister of Energy can say that's not true, but he can go back and read the transcripts of estimates where Minister Mungal actually did say on time, on budget as of June 30th, 2017. So I guess the Minister of Energy is feeling a little, stung by our lines of debate on Bill 14. It's very interesting to hear, Madam Chair, how reactionary he has been to just about every one of our speakers. I think that in itself should be a red flag to a great many people when a minister is this defensive at second reading about a piece of legislation that they've slow-walked into this chamber that's demanding the amount of authority and autonomy that they require. And the government will say, well, it's the energy regulator. It's the energy regulator is going to look at all this. Don't worry. Yes, because this is a government that has such a stellar track record with independent regulators. Because they certainly never, ever tell the BC Utilities Commission what to do. No, sirree. They certainly don't tell ICBC what they should or shouldn't be doing. Apparently, BC Ferries, who desperately needs more vessels than they currently have, the ferry commissioner is about the only one they'll actually listen to and turn around and say, oh, no, we can't step in where a statutory body is. They're independent. Apparently only the Ferry Commission is independent under this government's eyes. And now we're supposed to believe that the energy regulator will be left to themselves with Bill 14 and that Cabinet will not be sticking their thumb on the scales. Madam Chair, it creates a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, and a lot of those will be canvassed at committee stage. A lot of the answers will undoubtedly be very evasive from a government that does not believe in transparency at the best of times. But you know, it's interesting. Wind farms are not small ventures. The finished product, absolutely, we understand, is considered the green energy and everything else. We can understand that. But to try to pretend that there is not study after study around the world of potential impacts to flight patterns of birds, to a wide range of wildlife, to the noise that it makes and what that does to wildlife impact in surrounding areas, is laughable that this government is trying to say that they can fast track those environmental processes because it's a wind turbine. I can remember years ago when my daughter was going to university down in California, flying in from Arizona over into into the city she was living in. And a massive, massive wind farm of rusted turbines between Arizona and Bakersfield weren't moving, were just sitting there. Now, it was probably a failed private venture, I'm not sure, we were just flying over. But to think that these don't have massive footprints for substantive energy generation, you'd be fooling yourself. And so these are massive blades, these are massive towers, they need massive footings, they need massive equipment to build. You are not helicoptering in all you need to build a wind farm into these areas. Unless, I guess, you're going to be flying Sigorskis in tandem. That would be a nice GHG emission profile for that construction project, I guess. But we won't know, because we won't have to look into that under Bill 14, because these are deemed to be green, no matter what the impacts of construction actually are. I haven't heard a good explanation from the government, and maybe at committee stage we will, how exactly you build a construction road to get to a wind farm without properly looking at things like streams and the culverts that would need to go in or the bridges that need to go in to get that equipment in, the cutting through of roadways that needs to happen. How is that industrial service road any different than a service road for a logging operation trying to access a cut block that needs to actually make sure that they are taking those environmental considerations in? Watersheds, denning areas of animals, time of year, the type of cut and fill that will be needed to construct a road, the switchbacks that would be needed. The blade of a wind turbine will make roads with switchbacks very, very difficult to try to build, which means likely an even more cumbersome roadway that needs to be built. How does that differ than what TMX had to go through to put in the pipeline right away? How does that soil disturbance differ? And I would hope the Energy Minister is very well aware of TMX. I mean, we've gone from every tool in the toolbox to dredge baby dredge when it comes to that project. So apparently we are, at least the Energy Minister is on the road to Damascus somewhere when it comes to energy projects. Maybe he's arrived, I'm not sure. But let's look at the construction of TMX and how it relates to Bill 14. Why is that ground disturbance? Why is it that they literally had to worry about salamanders as it got down closer to the lower mainland? They had to worry about bird migration, nesting timeframes. They had to start and stop construction in different segments based on that. Freshets of streams. Construction had to start and stop. Impact to salmon-bearing streams or not. What was going to happen after in terms of remediation to the area? Because it's not a road that's left, it's a pipeline that they obviously don't want people driving on. But it's a big, massive corridor. It creates a massive corridor for predators like wolves and others to access wildlife that they would otherwise have a lot harder time to access into those areas. All of that gets looked at. Now, it can be looked at expeditiously. It could be looked at quickly. We're not saying that you need to waive everything. We're saying, why is it that this government, despite repeated over the last 7 years, adjustments and legislative changes to things like environmental assessment acts, which by their own words, when they introduced it by their own press releases, were supposed to change all of this to expedite things and move things forward quickly. Bill 14 essentially says by the government, we failed. Doesn't matter what our changes were over the last 7 years, it's failed. We can't get anything done quickly in this province. So our solution is, instead of actually truly fixing the problem so we can have efficient and proper environmental oversight of projects, we're just going to remove it completely based on what the end product of the project is. Not what the impact of that project is during construction, as it's getting located, just simply what the end product is. We agree with wind power Therefore, we don't worry about the inputs to construction and the harm it may or may not cause to a wide range of things when it comes to the environment. We're not so sure about oil and gas, so we're going to put up every roadblock, every tool in the toolbox we can to slow that project down. Mines, well, maybe we agree with it, maybe we don't. We'll get back to you in 12 years. Somehow adding this next layer of uncertainty to industry in Bill 14 is supposed to bring peace of mind and de-risk investment decisions. And that's a fundamental thing this government doesn't seem to understand, is how these investment decisions on projects are made. So I get they have a hand-picked group of wind farms. That's wonderful for those wind farms. What about all the other projects that have been waiting for years and years and years? You know, large corporations are just that. And these are big projects. You need large corporations attached with them. As whether we like that or not, that's just the cold reality for them to be able to get the financing they need and make the final investment decisions they need to move things forward like a wind farm. But they have projects going on all over the world. Pulp mills have projects going on all over the world. Sawmills have projects going on all over the world. They're parent companies. And what happens is each project goes into a board of directors meeting and makes their pitch for why the project in a certain jurisdiction should be the one that gets the scarce amount of dollars, because unlike this government, who seems to think money, you just keep running higher and higher deficits, that's not how the corporate world works. They need to see an actual return on investment. So you have 5 or 6 projects from around the world competing at the same time. They look at competitiveness, they look at the jurisdiction, the stability of the jurisdiction that they're trying to operate in, tax regime, permitting timelines, permitting process, permitting certainty. And you start reading through Bill 14, and you can't just read through Bill 14 in isolation, because Bill 15 will have some impacts on this as well, and actually so will Bill 7. This government's done a very good job of just separating the three and trying to pretend each one is independent of each other. Well, that's not what's going to happen. And so there's huge question marks as to how you would even reasonably get approved or not in a timely fashion in BC already. This Bill 14 is actually adding to that uncertainty. It's adding to that risk profile. So then those companies that have enough capital in the year to invest in 3 of the 6 projects being pitched to their board have decisions to make. You know, we reference TMX, we reference Site C, we reference LNG to this government all the time, because as much as the energy minister wants to try to say we're the party of no, he must be confusing his days, and I can appreciate that, because he's flip-flopped on his views of Kinder Morgan in particular so many times he probably doesn't remember which one. He of the Wool weather vane created based on that project. And you know, I was at a breakfast when he says, well, it's built now, it's time to move on. You know, the energy minister seems to get agitated. I was not the one characterized that I could kick a dog and still win an election. That was not me. The energy minister might be able to remind me who that was, but it wasn't me. This is the problem. This is a government that fundamentally, in their background, have always been opposed to projects like this. You know, they talk about how, and this is why it's so critically important, they talk about why these projects are important, but then they slow walk them and they create impediments despite their press releases saying they're speeding things up. The 3 projects I mentioned, the 3 big projects, TMX, what used to be Kinder Morgan, the old Kinder Surprise, LNG, and Site C, over the last 4 to 5 years, As much as this government wants to say their GDP was higher growth than the rest of Canada, that's because 80% of the growth in BC was tied directly to those 3 projects. Without those 3 projects, our GDP growth in some years would have been negative. Those 3 projects have now come to a close. This government has wasted the 7 years saying they've expedited permitting, saying they've got rid of duplication, saying they've found ways to advance projects, and we have nothing sitting in the wings. And so their answer is with Bill 7, with Bill 14, with Bill 15, is just say, forget about it. We're going to just start signing executive orders by cabinet and say, hand-pick projects here, there, and everywhere get to move forward. Other ones go to the back of the line. You can still wait 10 or 12 years. But still, especially for a group that is clinging to power. Remember, this was supposed to be the supermajority government that is now clinging to power strictly because of a deal with the Green Party, forces the Green Party into an agreement around confidence votes, which the Green Party has said very clearly at a minimum of 15. I think on 14 they still have major concerns too. They don't consider these part of that agreement. And I don't blame them. Talk about an overreach from a partner with a 1-seat majority based on the partnership with the Green Party to introduce something like Bill 14 that says, it doesn't even matter that we said for the last 7 years we fixed the environmental assessment process, we've strengthened it, we've made it better, we've made it more consistent, we have streamlined it, we've sped it up. Their answer is Bill 14 and says to the Green Party, suck it up. Don't worry about the fact that environmental assessments are essentially being removed, because you should like wind turbines. Sounds like the Green Party's figured out that there might be a little bit of disturbance. There could be some very serious environmental consequences to these wind farms. It doesn't mean wind farms can't happen in BC, but you can't just try to pretend because it's a wind farm, you wrap yourself in a green cloak and you say, there, we've solved all the problems. You know, the other problem with the Bill 14 is when you go through all the clause by clause definitions, the streamlined projects, the streamlined permitting, the application of this division, administration of delegated instruments, another area of level 2 streamlining, application of Energy Resources Activity Act, Administration of Energy Resources Activity Act. Time and again, the language in this bill, the language that this government has used to describe this bill, aligns very closely to what they have said over the years about all those other times they had solved the permitting issues in BC. All the other times. It's simply not good enough. Bill 14 simply does not actually accomplish what the government is purporting it's going to accomplish. I think it's great that the government has found ways to find Indigenous partnership groups and investor groups to come in on wind energy projects. But it doesn't mean, just as with any other segment of our population, it doesn't mean just because one Indigenous community has developed an equity partnership with a wind farm that the nations in and around that area are all in unison in agreement for that. We saw that with LNG. Wet'suwet'en, some supported, some didn't. Hereditary versus elected. So for this government to try to portray Bill 14 like it solves all of those Indigenous investment issues is simply not accurate. The government hasn't been clear with Bill 14 how they intend to move forward with those issues without triggering more lawsuits. Because they don't have a clearly defined process. Bill 14 doesn't spell out a very clear, defined process. It gets you an idea of what the government's proposing to do, but then they have all these override clauses that enables them, by way of regulation, to just keep changing the rules. Partway in a project, government wants to change the rules on you, they can. Partway into a project, government wants to change some of the cost structures on you, they can. That doesn't create certainty. It creates the exact opposite. One project needs slight rules changed, the government could just change them. Why did that one get that help? Does it come down to which lobbyist gets hired? And you're going to hear a lot of similar things said about Bill 15, Madam Chair, because there's a lot of similarities between the two bills. This one's much more energy focused. I grant that. The other is even more all-encompassing. But all you have to do is look at the lobbyist registry. All you have to do is look at some of the names on that lobbyist registry and their tight ties to this government. Either former MLAs, family members of cabinet ministers that have government relations firms. Now, I'm not saying anything untoward has happened previously. I'm not saying anything untoward will happen moving forward. But it could. And public trust, the basic tenet of public trust is the appearance that can be trusted. Bill 14 does not set the stage for that trust. The picking of winners and losers, the fact they're already citing which projects they have deemed that Bill 14 will be in effect for, what does that say to project number 10 or 11 that wants to raise their hand up and say, what, am I too late to the game now? Did I just hire the wrong government relations firm? Why wasn't I on the first list? You know, this government made a big deal about changing the lobbyist rules and changing the donation rules, and then they bring in things like Bill 14, which totally circumvents all of that in terms of public trust. There's the real conflict of interest, and then there's perceived conflict of interest. The perceived conflict of interest is actually the harder thing to manage for public trust, but it's something that governments should be over and above trying to manage. Bill 14 sets the framework for perceived conflict of interest everywhere. And then the ministers in this place get so upset when we dare to ask questions that the public is asking about some of those questionable relationships with government relations and themselves. We'll keep asking them. You'll notice I was pretty careful. I didn't even use names or anything. I could. I mean, technically, I can't get sued for saying it in here. But I'm not trying to paint any one person or firm that way. I'm saying it creates a massive perception problem that is real. So with none of that being spelled out, with how open-ended this can be, with the fact the government can just keep changing the rules on these groups anytime they want, and the fact, frankly, that this is a confidence vote, and I have zero, as I said at the beginning, zero confidence that this government, based on their track record of any file you want to talk about, knows what they're doing. There's absolutely no way I could support Bill 14, not just in its current state, in any state, and I welcome the government to make every one of their bills a confidence vote. And they might see just how little confidence us and the rest of BC actually has in them. So thank you for this time, Madam Chair.
Recognizing the member from Richmond Bridgeport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is an honor to rise in this chamber this morning as an elected representative for the constituents of Richmond Bridgeport to speak to Bill 14, the so-called Renewable Energy Projects Streamlined Permitting Act. Let me say this clearly and at the outset. I rise in firm and unwavering opposition to this legislation. Not because I'm against the development of renewable energy in British Columbia, but because I'm against the centralization of power the erosion of democratic oversight, and the blatant hypocrisy that this bill represents. Let's be honest with ourselves. British Columbia needs more energy. That's a fact. With our population growing in our province, our industry evolving, and our collective commitment to electrify our economy intensifying, the demand for reliable and sustainable energy is only increasing. BC Hydro itself forecasts that electricity demand will rise by 15% by 2030, and by many estimates, that demand will double or triple by mid-century. These are not projections to ignore. We must prepare for a future that is cleaner and more efficient, and that includes building the infrastructure required to power it. But preparation does not justify authoritarianism. Planning for the future does not excuse the dismantling of public scrutiny. And expanding renewable energy must not come at the cost of trampling on due process, undermining democratic institutions, or marginalizing local voices. Yet, that is exactly what Bill 14 attempts to do. Behind the glossy language of streamlining and efficiency lies a dangerous truth. This bill is a power grab, pure and simple. It represents the worst instincts of the government, of this government. The same instincts that were rightly rejected by the public just a few weeks ago when they tried to pass sweeping centralization under Bill 7. After public backlash forced them to pull the most offensive provision from that bill, they have returned with Bill 14, a legislative Trojan horse cloaked in renewable rhetoric, but carrying within it the very same threats to our democratic foundations. Let's call it what it is. Bill 14 is Bill 7 by stealth. This government, already infamous for its obsession with secrecy and its hostility towards transparency, is now seeking to grant itself extraordinary authority under the guise of urgent climate action. But urgency does not justify overreach. And expediency is no excuse for dismantling checks and balances. Madam Speaker, the hypocrisy here is galling. This is the same BC NDP government that for years railed against development and energy projects when they were in opposition. They opposed the Site C Dam. They opposed LNG. They opposed the Trans Mountain Expansion Project with every legal tool at their disposal. They obstructed, they delayed, and they deflected the cost of those projects, sometimes by billions of dollars. Let us not forget, the original cost of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion was $5.4 billion. But the time it was done, that price tag had ballooned to over $34 billion. Why? Because of the legal and procedural sabotage orchestrated in large part by this very government. And now, after years of being the party of no, they want us, they want British Columbians to believe They have a miraculous change of heart. They have gone from obstructionists to evangelists of energy projects overnight. They are evoking the specter of Donald Trump and unstable geopolitics to justify granting themselves unchecked authority. They have even started talking about dredging Burra Inlet to allow larger oil tankers through. Something unthinkable to the Minister of Energy, then leader of the NDP in 2013. He lost an election on the infamous Kinder Morgan flip-flop. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not a conversion based on principle. It is a political calculation. Sorry? Stop now? Looking at the time, Madam Speaker, I ask for adjournment of the debate and reserve my right to continue my debate.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Don't adjourn the debate. Conclude your remarks. Conclude your remarks.
No time? Conclude my remarks?
She's not adjourning.
Yeah, you're looking to reserve your spot, and
why am I going to do that?
no, member.
Yeah. Can I reserve my right to continue my debate in the after?
Certainly, you may do that if that's your intention.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, certainly. So reserve your place for your debate and to continue
Yes.
remarks, and motion to adjourn debate this morning. Members, you've heard the question. Those in favor? Aye. Motion approved. Committee chairs.
Madam Speaker, Committee of Supply Section A reports progress on the estimates of the Ministry of Children and Family Development and asks leave to sit again.
When shall the committee sit again? Government House Leader.
Next sitting, or this afternoon.
Committee Chair.
Madam Speaker, Section C reports progress on Bill number 13 and asks leave to sit again.
And when shall the committee sit again? House Leader.
This afternoon, after break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So ordered. Government House Leader.
Next sitting.
To move adjournment. Yeah, Government House Leader.
Thank you for your guidance, Honourable Speaker. A little bit of a day for me today. And with that, move that the House to adjourn.
House to now adjourn. Members, you've heard the question. Those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. We stand adjourned. We'll return 1:30 this afternoon. Thank you very much. It's ice cream time.